9 years after the independence, that is in 1956, the British Prime Minister Clement Attlee visited India. And during his tour of India, he was invited by the Governor of Bengal and he visited Calcutta on her invitation. During his tour of Calcutta, he met the then Chief Justice of Calcutta High Court, Fani Bhushan Chakraborty, and during a meeting with the Chief Justice, he was asked, that is, Clement Attlee was asked, that what was the main reason, the main factor behind the withdrawal of the Britishers from India and ending their colonial rule. Clement Attlee, with an enigmatic smile, replied this question in three words: Azad Hind Fauj. And then he was asked that what was the impact of Mahatma Gandhi's Ahimsa movement. To this, he answered in one word. And what was that word? Minimal. Well, friends, welcome to my channel. This is Partha Banerjee, and I am here to discuss two never ending controversies of Indian politics and one question which runs in the minds of every Indian. So, what are those two controversies? The first one is that who had a greater impact in Indian independence struggle? Was it Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose or was it Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi? And the second one, who was the first Prime Minister of independent India? And the third question to which we would try to seek an answer is that what would have happened if Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose became the first Prime Minister of India? As regards the first two controversies, never ending controversies of Indian politics, that who had a bigger impact, that is Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose or Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi in India's independence struggle, I think the answer is pretty clear. When the rulers, they themselves accept that it was Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose and his Indian National Army, which was formed in 1942, which practically shook the pillars of the British Empire in India, there cannot be a second doubt in that. As we all know, it's all a part of history now, nothing much to repeat, that INA was formed in 1942 and they inflicted a telling blow on the empirical powers of the British Empire in India. And Great Britain, as it is, was completely broke. Great Britain was devastated during the Second World War by the pounding which it received from Germany. Their resources were almost exhausted. They did not have any funds, any resource to invest in India and keep themselves engaged. And then came the blow from the Indian National Army and they were shaken to their roots. So it was a prudent decision on their part. It was a well thought of decision. They decided to hand over their powers and they ended the colonial rule and they left India. So it's needless to mention that Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose and his INA dealt the final blow to the colonial rule. And when the rulers, they themselves accept it, no matter what our historians say, no matter how they try to distort history and how much they try to glorify a few people and a particular family in Indian history, it doesn't matter because history never lies and the fact would always remain. Now, coming to the next controversy, who was the first Prime Minister of independent India? Here also, it is based on pure historical facts. and records. No assumptions, no hypothesis. The Japanese handed over Andaman and Nicobar Islands to Azad Hind Fauj in 1942, to Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, in fact, and Netaji unfurled the first Indian tricolour in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands and formed the provincial government of Azad Hind. This government was recognized by 9 countries. And which were those 9 countries? Besides the Axis powers, that is Japan, Italy, and Germany, it was Yugoslavia, Manchuria, Vietnam, Thailand, Burma, and don't be surprised by the last name, it was China. All of these 9 countries, they recognized this government, and this government had their own court, their bank, their stamp, and their radio station also, and their currencies. And Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose was the Prime Minister and President of this government. So, it's a concluded fact that Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose was the first Prime Minister of independent India. No doubts there. Again, no matter what the historians try to prove, or no matter how much they distort history and they glorify a particular family or certain people in our history for their vested interest, it just does not matter. It's what the people know. Now, the third point which we are here to address is, it's a question, it's a very big question which is there in the mind of many Indians, that what it would be like if Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose became our first Prime Minister. Well, this is something for which we do not have uh, many historical records or historical facts to bank upon. We would try to seek an answer to this through some trend analysis, some records, and of course, some assumptions. So, keeping all these 3 things in mind, the first thing that would have happened is the Indo-China relationship would not have soured. And this is based on historical fact. And to some extent, a kind of assumption also. Now, what is the fact? The fact is that during Second World War, China was ravaged. China was completely devastated by Japan. They just ran over that country. And China sought help from India. In 1938, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose was the president of Indian National Congress at that time. He declared 12th June as the All India China Day. And he collected funds from all over the country and sent that fund to China as a token of help from India. And that was it. China acknowledged this help and they became friends with India. And this was one of the main reasons why China supported the provincial government of Azad Hind in Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So it can be very well assumed that had Netaji become our first Prime Minister, we would not have soured our relations with China, and definitely that that one-sided war of 1962 would not have been fought. This can be well assumed and we can conclude that. The second thing that would have happened is, again, through facts, through trend analysis, and by assessing what Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose was, India would not have been partitioned. It can be said for certain that India would not have been partitioned. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose was always against partition and he opposed it to the extent possible. He, in fact, made his points clear to Nehru and Gandhi that if partition happened, it would lead to separatists' force raising their heads in the future. And just see what we are facing now. It's needless to mention the number of states in which we are facing this kind of separatists activities and the amount of resources which the government is spending to contain these forces. The other thing is that Netaji had a very strong appeal to the Muslims, and the Muslims believed in Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose much more than they believed on the other leaders of Congress. So it is very well assumed and believed also, I may say, that it would have been possible for him to take Muslim League into confidence. And it would not have been difficult for him to convince them against partition. And this is what Lakshmi Sehgal, who belonged to the Rani Lakshmi Bai regiment of the Indian National Army, has stated that Netaji was dead against, completely against on principle, against partition, and it would have been possible for him to convince the Muslim leadership against it. I mean, the Muslim League against it, rather. See, his secularism needed no proof. Azad Hind Fauj was the largest 100% secular army in the world at that time, a true secular army. While in Indian Congress, Muslim leadership or Muslim party workers barely was 10 to 15%. In Azad Hind Fauj, the percentage of Muslim soldiers there were around 30 to 40%. And they all vowed their allegiance to Netaji. And they all came under his banner to fight for India. So his influence with the minorities was unquestionable. There was no doubt on that. So India would have definitely not been partitioned. We would not have faced the bloodshed and the atrocities of partition. This was the second thing which can be said for certain, that India would not have been partitioned and we would have stayed as one single country. India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, it just wouldn't have happened. Well, the next thing that would have happened is that, which is again based on more on trend analysis and assumption and some part of assessment of his political ideology. From his book, The Indian Struggle, it is apparent that he had respect for the communist ideology. He was he had an inclination towards the communist ideology, and he had mentioned there that he would form a party, that is Samyavadi Sangha or the Communist Union. So had this been formed, if he became the first Prime Minister of India, it can be assumed that India would not be a democracy. India would be a one-party state. And hence, like all other communist countries, there would be practically no opposition. But it definitely does not mean that Netaji would be a dictator. He would never be one, and he was against this. He never supported dictatorship. He always believed in equal rights for every citizen, in secular beliefs. He believed in giving equal religious rights to all, and he was against any form of gender bias, and it reflected in irony. Indian National Army was the only army in the world which had a full-fledged women's regiment, which was the Rani Lakshmibai wing, the Rani Lakshmibai regiment. So it proved beyond doubt his openness as far as uh, freedom to people to express their ideas, to express their thoughts, and then zero gender bias. And one very strong positive effect of this would be that India would have become a much more disciplined nation, because Netaji believed in a strong leadership. He always spoke of a very strong leadership, and he believed in a strong leadership which could lead the nation, which could show the people the path of progress through industrialization, not based merely on agriculture, through industrialization, through enterprise. And he was somebody who believed in that there should be a strong leadership which can guide the people towards progress. And it can be said beyond doubt that India would have become a much more disciplined nation. Maybe today India would have been something like Japan. Now, there is one uh, dark side of this particular assumption, that what it would be if he was the first Prime Minister of India. Well, if it would be a communist form of government with no opposition to put a check on the government affairs, there is absolutely no question of doubt in Netaji's capabilities or his ability to lead the country towards progress. There is no doubt in that. No one can dare to even have an iota of doubt in that. But what would be the situation after him? Can it be said that the person who succeeded him would have similar values or would have equally strong values as him? Well, this is a very big question which all of us needs to consider. And how do we think about it? Like, as we know that power breeds corruption. So, being a single party system with no opposition, if his successor or his subsequent successors did not have equally high values as him, that would have that could have rather spelled disaster for the country. So this is only one dark side of the assumption that can be had as regards imagining uh, Netaji becoming our first prime minister. But the positives definitely would have outnumbered the negatives. If there is one negative, there could be 10 positive. So, friends, this is something we all of us need to think, that did we aren't we really unfortunate, because we lost him when we needed him the most. And whether he returned to India, we don't know. We don't know who Gumnami Baba was. Whether he died in that plane crash in 1945 is still a mystery. Whether he was arrested in USSR is again a mystery. Though a letter was written to Stalin to take him into custody, but whether at all he was arrested, no one knows. The only leader in India till date who resides in the heart and mind, in the soul of every Indian across the length and breadth of the country without any political glorification, without any propaganda, is Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. I think it's a misfortune for us, for all of us, that we lost him at a time when he definitely should have been there. It is our misfortune as a nation. And unfortunately, there was no replacement. He was the one and only. So, yes, we do miss Netaji, and it is very clear that our entire history and geography would have been different today if he was the first prime minister of our country. India would have been a different India, no doubts about it. So that's about it all. Thank you for being with me, friends. It was nice talking to you on this topic. And if you have liked the content, please do like and share. And if you feel the content of my channel interesting, I would request you to subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon for more interesting contents in the future. Thank you very much once again, and God bless you.